I got drawn in on sort of into the subject about what happens after the fire. I just want to share some experience with you.
I learn so much by talking to other people that I meet, and I make really long-standing connections.
Pouring water onto an EV in thermal runaway is like pouring water onto the roof of your house when your kitchen's on fire. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just seeing if you're still awake, that was all. My name's Charles, I'm the resident Yorkshire man. I'm here to talk about rubbish. I've made a living out of it for quite a while. So it's quite interactive. There are a few sections where I'd like to invite you. There's a few trick questions in there, as you would expect. But I just want to table my expertise. I am, I would say, an expert at refuse chutes, but what you're about to hear and what my engineers perform is solely about refuse chutes. Under no circumstances have we got the training or knowledge or academic background of this audience to be able to make comment on existing total building fire strategies. We will, when we talk about inspection and testing and so on and so forth, this is really, it ignores everything else that's in the building. So you might say, Charles, you failed that, but I'm happy to pass it because of this, and this that's in place. We ignore all that because my engineers are not allowed to be subjective. They'll just provide an inspection and testing report, and then you can decide what you want to do with that. So there will be situations, and you say, Charles, that doesn't apply in these situations. There will be many of them. Okay. So it's just about refuse chutes. So a little bit about me. Do I need to actually stand up? Do you have a beep, or do I need to be up here?
You can say click, Charles, if you want me to stand up for you.
Do we have any professional clickers in the audience?
You can do it on the laptop as well. It's easier.
That's lovely. So a little bit.
You've done it.
I've done it. Thank you. We've just got electric in Yorkshire, so I'm I'm not going to walk you through all that. I'm actually I have an engineering background. We actually manufacture refuse chutes. We install them, and we retrofit them in existing buildings and demolish old ones while residents are still there, and reinstate them with new ones. I employ, it's actually 34 people now in the United Kingdom. I'm a member of the British Standards Institute on the Committee for Refuse. Very exciting life I live. But within that committee sits refuse chutes. So where needed, I offer some advice. And the training that I received came from the Building Research Establishment, very well known to you, no doubt. I knocked on their door for a long time saying there are no best practices, there are no industry standards, can you help? And then eventually I got a phone call and they said, Mr. White, you are right, there are. Would you like us to write some? I said, I'd love you to write some. So that's really a little bit about me. I'm going to focus on a few things that maybe you've not seen before. Not many of us enjoy sticking our heads in chutes. But particularly, really, there's a number of things in here that's way below your academic background. But the bit I like to stress, I provide free training. Don't charge for the training that I give because it's for public good. It's technical, it's regulatory, and it's for the people who live and work in the blocks that we're talking about. It's not really for you. You know about approved Doc B, inside out, upside down, length, breadth, height and width. But the people that you employ or work with are unaware of it. And in my experience, that's where the problems begin to occur, especially when you employ your own in-house teams to be doing some checks. Why do they do them? How do you influence behaviours with people so they understand why they're doing what you're asking them to do? That's where I'm going to come from here. So please don't be offended when you see a picture of approved Doc B. It's to emphasize the fact that without the people that work with you, the best strategies of all can even fail. I'm going to show you some when things go wrong, and then I'm going to ask you how you might fix it, and so on and so forth. So we might not get through all of it, but the most important stuff is early on. Okay. Fusible links. I get an email 3 times a week from fire risk assessors saying, Charles, can you come and service my fusible links? Yeah, I feel like I'm at Hackney Empire now. And of course you can't. Everybody knows what they are. But in my experience, I've trained hundreds of people. 90% have no idea what they are. Your people need training on what they are. Do they know what a eutectic alloy is? It's easy to explain. I'm not a metallurgist or a chemist. But they understand. Can they see it? Are they prepared to get a pair of steps to have a look? How do you test things? How often do you replace this stuff? There's no regulation on that. What environments do these start to corrode? You'll have to attend one of my training sessions to find that out if you don't know. The standards that refer to refuse chutes have been around a long time. The one on the left, 5906, is really if you're building something new. 1703 is coming to its 20th birthday next year. And I raised it within the Institute saying, is it time we reviewed this? But the Institute's view was that there's so many other standards that apply to 1703, there's no need to update it. So even though it's 19 years old, it's still fit for purpose, for a standard, not necessarily regulation. Okay, just quickly, because nothing worse than acronyms in industry speak. A discharge pipe is the bit in the bin room that it is a separate piece of kit. That's what we call a discharge pipe. These I'm going to call hoppers, where the residents open and put their rubbish in. And then right at the top, there's a vent pipe. Most refuse chutes, and we've inspected thousands of them, are vented. Some are not. Maybe I've got some questions that you might be able to help my technical understanding afterwards. Anyway, this is to help people that work for you. Where do the regulations speak about refuse chutes? Well, you don't need to write it down, you know already. This is particularly useful because whilst there are many standards for testing fire doors, there are none for refuse chutes. There are none for refuse chute hoppers. And the fire closure plate that shuts and makes the bin room a compact, there are none. So how do standards work in that situation? Well, you need to consult section 7. I've got an excerpt to show you in just a slide or two. Is it next? Nope. So we are now in a bin room, and you're looking at the ceiling. Okay. The majority of what we call fire closure plates are sprung loaded. Hidden here and here is a high tensile spring, and it's held back by the fusible link. Okay? On this side is a much simpler de-engineered version, which just simply uses gravity. I don't need to test whether this one works because it will always close, unless our solar system starts to behave differently. It will always close. It requires zero maintenance. Whereas, I'm not saying sprung-loaded systems are bad, but how often do you test yours? Yeah, leave that one. Another challenge on the majority of these fire closure plates is the fusible link is in the wrong place. The fusible link is 1.5 meters from the bin, the contents of the bin. So if you're going to use a fusible link on one of these fire closure plates, please make sure it's as close to the bin as possible, and therefore the alloy will melt in the shortest possible time. Okay. You might think it's simple, but anyway, to me, it is. I don't know who that is. Have I moved on to a different... I'd love to talk about somebody else's slides and ruin them for them, but...
That appears to be the last slide. I don't know what's happened there.
Oh.
not sure. We'll have to...
Right, I'll have to ad-lib it. Which reminds on my memory, which is not as good as it used to be, so... Hey ho, here we go.
You go that side, we'll pass around the front.
Technology is great most of the time, isn't it? I was going to show you a little excerpt from a fire that happened in Australia's tallest residential building, Q1 building in Surfers Paradise. Never been? Have you? Anybody been to Surfers Paradise? Yeah, there's always some. Have you got a wetsuit as well? It took some digesting. 78 floors, 1,000 feet tall, 528 apartments. And that entire unit filled with smoke. And it filled with smoke because there was a fire in the bin room and the fire closure plate did not operate. Why did it not operate? Well, I'm not a forensic investigating officer either, but my challenge is smoke will only go where it's got passage. So either the hoppers on every floor were not smoke tight. Do you smoke test your hoppers? Do you think you should be doing it? Is it easy? Is it invasive on residents? Do you need to cover up? Do you need to cover? Are we back on?
Yeah, just careful standing and not the presentation on your forehead.
It might be an improvement. Just going to introduce quickly. I'm not saying fusible links are not safe. I am not saying fusible links are not safe. However, if you want one of these bin room automatic closure plates to activate quickly, smoke or heat sensors or both will trigger that and seal off the bin room. I don't have any tests. I'll say off the top of my head, on average, 10 minutes sooner than not. Back out, back that up. What do we do? It's really very simple. This is the gravity closure that you're looking at now. Smoke sensor, you get it. When the smoke sensor triggers, it cuts the power to the maglock and it closes the plate. Simple. If you want to see a real one, well, there's a miniature one here. Don't know how that arrived. We've actually got one at the exhibition. You can come and see a real one. It is seriously robust. You'll be shocked. You won't be able to lift it. So, we've just installed 55 of these for Newcastle City Council because they had a lot of trouble with arson and so on, other things. But it's easy to talk here and say that's your solution. It isn't. Unless we train the people that operate them in every block, it will fail. So rather than producing an operations and maintenance manual that nobody ever reads, send them a video.
This is a short video to explain what to do if there has been a false activation of the...
Each caretaker on their mobile phone knows how to reset that panel without calling me, so it doesn't cost anything. How about that? A breakthrough. Typical tight Yorkshireman. Train the people, that's just my view. In my little world, yours is a big world, mine's just small. Train the people, it will happen. This bit here, I'll just leave it. Can you see that? I'm going to shut up for 30 seconds and let you read it. When there is no standard for hoppers, fire closure plates, please read that. So when it comes to furnace testing my products and smoke testing my products, BRE, or X-Over Warrington Fire, who are here, will select the closest, because they're UCAS accredited and they have the authority to select the standard when there isn't one directly related to the product, and there are hundreds of them. So that's where that comes from. I'd just like to point out something that makes this beast quite unique. So imagine now the smoke sensor's triggered and the electric power's been cut to the maglock. Now I've put some foam in, okay, to save your ears. that will snap tight shut. Now, this has a 240-minute fire rating. You don't need that. How else can I demonstrate how robust it is and how long it's going to last? This thing will last you 50 years with no maintenance. How about that? But the bit that's different, so watch as it's gravity. They had these when they were making linen in the 1800s, and they did. It's not a new design. But there's some key things. Do you think, I'd ask her, put your hand up if you think that this should be smoke tight as well as have a fire rating. All we did was simply on the frame under here, and you can come and have a look later to check, is we fit intumescent strip. Now, how much did that cost me? Probably about £5. But when it was tested in the BRE laboratory test furnace, that thing not only held together, it stopped the fire and the smoke for 4 hours because of a £5 piece of intumescent strip. Why am I the only manufacturer that does that? I don't know. It costs me next to nothing, but what do you and your residents get in return for somebody just thinking about, shouldn't that be smoke tight, Chaz? How about that? Simple. I think it's simple and straightforward. And of course, when BRE test things, they break down every single thing. Why do BRE and why do Exover Warrington Fire insist that the manufacturer installs it? Why don't they install it? Anybody got any ideas? Just shout out.
They break it.
They could break it. Absolutely. Sorry?
Might hurt themselves doing it.
They could hurt themselves doing it. The other reason?
Liability.
Good.
Test your workmanship.
That's the answer. This demonstrates contractor competency. They provide the wall or the furnace lid, depending on whatever you're talking about. So when you were next to, forget about refuse chutes, if you're ever, who trained the installer? Has the installation been tested? Because BRE won't touch it. They'll build you what you want, but you've got to fit it. Interesting one for you to take away. Hopefully. So that concrete slab with a hole in it, they're made because that represents what your slab looks like in every block in the country. So that's what that is. And of course then, a fire rating, I'm sure there's some better experts at it than me, but in Yorkshire languages, it didn't fall to bits certificate. That is not a smoke rating. Most procurement bodies that ask me for advice assume that the fire-rated product, and it's got a certificate, everything is okay. Should it be smoke tight is the question that the people you instruct need to be asking, and can you prove it? What evidence have you got to prove it? I think we've missed the video of the... Anyway, are there any Australians in the room? Oh, I won't say what I was going to say then.
Australia's tallest tower, Q1 on the Gold Coast, has been evacuated over a fire outbreak on a lower level.
Smoke-filled hallways forcing hundreds of residents to take the stairs to escape the more than 300-metre tall building.
I was in bed and my dad ran in and he's like, "Quick, get up, there's smoke."
Very quickly the whole unit filled up with smoke.
Residents eventually finding safety and catching their breath out on the street. This was the source of the trouble, fire inside a large bin below an internal rubbish chute. Stretching all the way up the building, smoke travelled up the pipe, spreading everywhere.
Investigations show that a simple fail-safe mechanism didn't release a hopper lid in the chute to contain the fire. Instead, the chute became a chimney.
It works like a spring mechanism, so when you hold it and release, so it goes, and when garbage comes, it opens and then shuts.
I love it that people called it the hopper lid didn't activate. It's nothing to do with a hopper.
That's right.
Okay. So, I'll leave you to read that. It's just my view. You can argue with me if you wish. That's fine. We've got a question. We don't have time for questions. Not awkward ones.
Yeah, it was just a quick one. Is there any sensors in the actual chute? So if rubbish was put in and we actually had a blockage to stop the door closing, so something put in some, is there any way of getting around that?
That is a mega question. It's not fire related. Am I allowed to answer it? It could be fire related. I beg your pardon. I was invited on a steering group for a new massive NHS hospital that's been built in Suffolk, and also for the new Monklands Hospital in Glasgow, and this is exactly the question I was asked. Now, the challenge with bin full or chute full sensors is they don't work. And the reason they don't work is they are proximity switches, proximity sensors. But the problem with them, even in a linen chute in a hospital or a hotel, they get covered with lint. You drop a linen bag down a hospital or a refuse bag, and depending on velocity and mass and acceleration rates, it will hit that bin at goodness knows how many miles an hour. And this happens, this is a very technical term, and that covers the sensors. And at the new Monklands Hospital, the NHS there is looking for automated guided vehicles to move bin cages in and out and linen cages in and out with no people, relying on this technology, and I said no. So it's a great question. But what you've raised can be included in one of the slides I've got for how can the people that work for you manage this? Because you've actually realised one of the key points that in-house staff can do. Because if there's rubbish in the bin and it's piling up, no closure plate in the world apart from Madame Guillotine will close. So thank you for asking. It's not a great answer. But if anybody's got knowledge about proximity switches and sensors that can cope with debris, yeah, we can agree to send a team in every day. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't. Because people are busy and I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, there we go. That is my view. But the question for you, I'm only an expert on chutes. I'm not an expert in building design. There are many people who are highly qualified here. Can anybody give me any reasons that could possibly, why did that 78-storey, 1,000 foot, 528 apartment block fill with smoke on the stairwell? Just shout out, please. Reverse stack effect. That's an excellent one.
Lobby not ventilated.
Shout up.
Lobby not ventilated.
Lobby's not ventilated. Another great answer. The smoke, cooling smoke descending. I can't comment on that particular happening, but I can comment on lots of local authorities that have called me with exactly the same problem. So what I'm going to speak to you about now is not related to Q1 building, because I was never asked to go, because I wanted a first-class ticket. Okay, but I'm not a forensic officer. I don't pretend to be. But here are some reasons that's happening in this country, in this city. The same problem. We've talked about that. This is the top. The majority of social housing tower blocks were built between 1962 and the mid-1970s, and there are thousands of them. Most landlords have had them structurally tested, and most of them have been given a ticket for another 40 years. Now, how good a building is that? Properly well-made stuff. So now they can invest in the properties. But in this particular landlord, which I will not reveal the name of, said, Chaz, we've got smoke from a bin chute fire descending the stairwell and the lift shaft. What is going on? The first thing we tested was, were the hoppers leaking smoke? Because that's easy to do. We do it very simply. But in actual fact, it got nothing to do with the hoppers, because they were my hoppers and they were smoke tight. So this is the top of the hopper. You're now on the top floor below. This is the bin chute below, it's a bit out of focus. And then you can see the little reduced diameter. There's supposed to be a ventilation pipe here that we reckon was never fitted in the first place. And it's supposed to come out here, but somebody in their wisdom has put a manhole cover on top, why wouldn't you? And what happened was that the smoke was coming down here, and there's a void between the top floor and the roof line, and that's where the smoke escaped and descended. But it was a big problem. It was really a big problem, but it's very easy to fix. And I'm going to share with you how you can do it without asking me to do it. Would you like to hear it? Okay, I'm going to tell you anyway. The first thing we did was put the vent pipe on that should have been there in the first place. Ablative bat, I'm going to talk about that. So that's the first thing we did. And immediately, by making sure that the fire seal between this old thing and this new thing is in place and it's secured properly, we've already, just by doing that, prevented the smoke from entering the void and everywhere else in the building. But we did more. We obviously extended the pipe. A simple collar. We use Evermate, Fire Mastic, 4 hours. It's £1.50 a tube. Okay. We connected it up. We manufactured this because this is what we do. And we fitted that on top like so. We then lifted that by some regs on how high it's got to be. I can't quite remember above the roof line, but anyway, that's to regs. And then, and most importantly, we tested it. And this is not difficult. This is something you don't have to get me in to do. You can do it. I'd be happy to do it for you. But if you wish to do it yourself, that's okay. This is about the public good. The camera moved quickly so as not to reveal the football club in between both blocks, unless you're a Hawkeye. So where we've fitted this stuff, these simply a Venturi rotating cowl, simple stuff, been around a long time. It does increase draw. According to the physicist Venturi, allegedly, the taller the pipe, the bigger the draw, or the bigger drop in pressure that leads to a bigger draw. So, and you can buy them from your local HVAC supplier. They're not difficult to find. So, I'll just let you read that. But the big one to look at is the word in yellow. I'm not now talking about the chute. I'm talking about the riser within which it sits. Okay. The majority of social housing chutes are made of clay, concrete, or a mixture. Majority. New chutes are now being installed with either galvanised mild steel, which has got a 50-year lifespan, or stainless steel. So this is a social landlord that said, Chaz, we've realised that the riser, not the chute, has never been inspected since the day it was built. We think we ought to do it, and will you do it for us? So we did. And that's how we did it. Now, before, apologies to all you firemen that do this day in and day out, we create a positive pressure inside the refuse chute, unless there's a really strong one naturally, simply by having 2 electric fans. It's that technical to create a positive pressure inside, and then that gives us a sustained measure. We warn the residents because the first time we did this, in 6 apartments, smoke was coming out in the bathroom. How about that? Yeah. So what was the outcome? It's quite a long, I'm not going to walk you through it. You can pick out the bits you like. Remember, this is the riser, not the chute inside it. Mostly concrete block, most of them anyway. So there's a good news headline. 3/4 of a huge housing stock was actually in excellent condition and needed no repair whatsoever. But the cost of repair of what was left was something that is unlikely to have been planned for. But replacing sections of chute we've done lots of it. It's very possible, and it's almost negligible resident nuisance. So if you've got a bust chute and it's only 1 floor, it can be fixed. Okay, at low cost? Well, I've already asked that question. You said yes. This is BRE. This is an example of them choosing at the time. This was, I know that these may have been updated, but at the time this was the standard that they thought was the very closest match you could get for the purpose to which this apparatus is going to be applied. At the second time we made some mistakes in the original design, but we're able to, on a standard, simple, self-closing hopper, and managed to create a seal 10 times than the minimum British standard. And that's just standard smoke seal. Now, I've got some hoppers down in the fire exhibition for you to have a look at. So this is the rubber smoke seal. It's just standard stuff. You might see it on my old 1970s orange Capri had some on the outside of the door. It's a very technical term. It's squishy, right? But you won't be able to see it, but you can see a live example downstairs. Here is that intumescent strip that costs a fortune, about £5, to put all the way around. But what we know for sure is that if in the event of a real fire, when that rubber seal is going to melt, no doubt about it. By the time that rubber seal is gone and the smoke seal has lost, the intumescent has activated and sealed off that hopper from leaking smoke. It's that simple. This is cheap, it's effective. So I'm going to show you now. So in essence, what does good look like on a hopper to prevent the lobbies filling up with smoke is a rubber smoke seal and an intumescent seal. They must both be present for that outcome to be real. But we go a little bit further. London Underground, thought I'd use this as an example. They went to such lengths that they even, before they powder coated anything in stations that they were upgrading, they thought, can we just pick any powder coating? Now, I've not got shares in Axona Bell, but I know because we use it, and this doesn't set alight, it just turns to ash. So when you're procuring product that has a powder coating, you won't find that in any specification. I'm not recommending that that's the only one. I'm just saying it is possible, and it costs me about 10% more than all the others. Okay, it's just worth bearing in mind. So staff training. Remember what I said, this isn't for you. I know you know all about intumescence, okay? But the people that work for you do not. They've heard you talk about it, but 90% of the group have never actually seen it work. This is really helpful if you've got staff, or if your brigade is asked to inspect a chute. Has it got intumescent strip in it and a smoke seal? Simple stuff that you can do visually. When we show that to most staff, they're floored, they have no idea. Please, if you want to improve behaviours, share this basic stuff. Now, I'm a bit embarrassed to share this one. I've done it again.
Did you actually see that one yesterday? See where we got the smoke going up the shaft?
If you saw that yesterday, apologies, because I know you know about that, but your people don't. Fire behaves very differently inside a chute, and this is the way to explain why their job, that might get a bit boring, is critically important, and the reasons why you're asking them to do what they do. It really helps. And they go home thinking they've done a good job, and they know why. They've not just had some paperwork that they choose, that they get asked to fill out. I had a bust-up, which I find very easy to do, with a very large social landlord who says, Chaz, I want you to fit me a load of HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, fire dampers to the bottom of the chute. Now, I won't embarrass you and ask you to say, do you think that's good? Because I'm telling you right now, you've wasted your money for a very basic reason. First of all, BS 1703 says, in a building 12 stories and higher, the plate at the bottom must be 6 mil thick, and they said that in 2005. Now, why do you want a plate 6 mil thick? It's obvious, because within minutes, if you use this stuff, it'll be bent and warped, and it will not close. Another reason is that there's generally two types. There's this concertina blade that you gather up and hold it back with a fusible link, or the vents. You've seen them, haven't you? Yeah. But the problem is that the runners that these rely on, so as not to leave the frame, are inside the chute. And within 1 day, the 4 we fitted on test, none of them would close because they had cat litter and nappies and last night's curry and everything else inside the runner, and it wouldn't close. These are perfect, fit for purpose in air systems. They are absolutely not designed for use with systems that manage solids for that reason. And that is why this real simple solution here, you'll notice that the rollers are sitting on some angle iron that is outside, completely outside of the chute. It will never get blocked up with cat litter. It will always work. It is really simple stuff. We hope that you've benefited. So I said I got some questions for you. So when I mean a fire closure plate, I mean this. These are both in Greater London. So it's a little bit difficult. We've got a tiny little bin there. And in there, you don't know what the inside is, so it's a bit tricky. Anybody got a view? No? Well, on this one, there are hundreds of these in London, hundreds of them, with balconies, tenements. London Borough of Tower Hamlets, are you present? You've got 1,132 chutes just in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. Southwark have got more. But here, the expert advice that I've been given, although I've never seen it in writing, is that you firefighters, you actually want the smoke to go to atmosphere. You don't want it trapping. Is that true? Can you tell me once and for all, is that true? Do you want the smoke to go to atmosphere? It depends. That's not helpful at all. I'm not. I'll leave that to you. You're the experts. But the advice that I'm giving, and honestly, if I need correcting, please, I don't know everything. You guys, you know, it's a reservoir of knowledge compared to my little teacup. This bin chute is not an integral part of the building, and therefore it doesn't need to be smoke tight. I'll just leave that with you. Now, one landlord who I put this to said, Charles, yeah, but that's their only means of escape. I said, well, can't help. Where's that chap from Reba? You might have an answer. But the advice I'm giving, and please, this is a genuine reach out, if I aren't right, if that's set alight, why do you want to contain it? I say you don't. You want the smoke to go up into the sky. But if I'm wrong, I would love, please, that's the advice I'm giving. And there isn't an audience more well qualified to correct me. However, the other building is a bit different. Let me just zoom in. There's no way of knowing. This is in Greater London. Difficult to see there. That is an integral part of the building. So I sum up my personal opinion with that. Now, anybody who says, I surveyed 30 blocks within Greater London, and the chute in half of them was in the middle of the building. And their fire risk assessor said it doesn't need an FCP. Now, I had to create arguments, but in my book, that is putting residents at risk. And it's not expensive. And you've heard how long they last. It's peanuts. Get it done. A landlord yesterday said, Chaz, I don't want you to include smoke testing. So I disengaged from the tender and told him what I thought. Them days are gone. I'm not doing it. Now then, there are some clues in this photo. Who's in the yes camp? Who's in the no camp? Who's in the abstention camp? Yeah. Yeah. There are thousands of these. Behind there, the chute isn't there because it terminates above. Please. 1 minute left. The answer is it does. Because what's at the other side of that hopper is just a bin in the bin room. And that's the only stairwell in that building. Absolutely, it's got to be smoke tight. How many landlords looking at that? I dare tell you the answer. Russ, I'm at the end. Listen, thank you for listening to a Yorkshireman that knows a lot about a little. But anyway, thank you.